So I got this beautiful $180 5A quilted top. I did a video of this maybe about a year ago and it just didn't turn out right. We're gonna come back and redo this video. This is a Corinna back that I used that aqua coat on. I sanded off the coloring on the top and we're gonna do, I guess, a tiger's eye. I'll try that again. But we're gonna be using Angelus leather dyes today, dark brown and orange. And if that doesn't look right, we'll hit it with a little bit of yellow. This is a really beautiful body, lots of heavy quilt. The only thing I don't like is this patch of quilt here. When I stained it, it didn't look right. But what I love about the Angelus leather dyes is they really penetrate deep into the pores. And so I can really get these colors to pop. So I've got two clean rags, some dark brown, and we'll hit this up here. So dark brown from Angelus is the darkest color. I've got an old cut up t-shirt. We're gonna soak this in. Doing this to the side so I don't drip it on the body. And that's the dark brown. Now that I got a little bit of color on, I don't mind some of the drips. I kind of want this darker, like way darker. So I think I might actually add some black. When you talk about really heavy quilted pieces of wood, heavy figuring, whatever you guys want me to say, the cleaner the lines, the better this is going to look. And with a dark solid color, that one piece sort of disappears. So we'll put two coats on, always do two coats, get that coloring nice and even. And we're gonna mix 50-50 brown and black to darken this up even more. Maybe not 50-50, but we're gonna do about a quarter black. The rest brown. Come back with the brown rag. This looks a little bit darker, which is what I'm going for. There we go. So dark brown is dark, but it needs a little bit more black to get it to penetrate in. That's what I'm looking for. And you can see when you apply too much color, sometimes it splotches up like up here, because now I've way oversaturated the top. That means I've got all the dye as deep as it's going to go, and it's just sort of pooling onto the top. And that's exactly what's happening here. You can put too much color on. That's why you see me do the trick with the steel wool, where I actually pull some of that color back out, because sometimes you can have too much color on the wood. So we'll let this sit for about, I don't know, a couple hours. We'll come back and sand it back, and then we'll layer the yellow, and we'll be pretty close to being done. We sanded off the top with this open grain sandpaper, maybe for about 3 or 4 minutes. Fast forward to that here for you, so you have to see that. This stuff works really nice. It works really well indoors. I've got a vacuum cleaner hooked up, and really there's no dust floating around. We're gonna come back now with Angelus orange leather dye. So I've got a nice dark base. I've got a nice even coloring, maybe only on the sides here where I sanded. I've got a little bit of unevenness, but once I put the orange on here, we can come back with the darker rag and orange, and that should get us to a good spot. I'm gonna try and get an even coat of color and not apply too much dye. This coloring is actually amazing. So I'm picking up a little bit of the brown. See if I can just rub this in. Really looks good. Historically, when I've done this, I've added sort of red to the sides, but this looks so good, I don't want to do that. Sometimes red helps add a little bit more of a color than just the brown and the yellow. I think people call these honey bursts, tea bursts. But this came out really nice. When you get a really nice piece of maple, you can just see the coloring is so even. And even just moving this around, it looks beautiful. I'm gonna get the darker rag and add a little bit of color on the outside. So I've got the orange rag, same mix as yesterday. Just want to dab this in. We're going to feather this just a little bit to clean up the color. You'll see me use different brush strokes from time to time. Sometimes I'll do the circles, sometimes I'll do the feathering. And I think for the final coloring like this, I like doing it this way. Avoids the heavy swirl. So when I do a swirl, sometimes that inside motion, I get a little bit too much color. Here, when I'm going back and down, my downstroke is towards the edge. Like this actually looks really sweet. So we'll just continue to do this, sort of move it a little bit further in. Really a killer top. Just going to see if I've got any coloring that looks off. I don't think I see it anywhere. One thing you want to do is sort of tip up the edges. I have missed color on the top here sometimes. Definitely say I get more control pulling this out than I do rubbing it around. It's a little bit red here. I think that's just the way the wood sort of turns out. I'm going to leave it. I'm gonna let this dry. I'll come back with the steel wool, rub this out. And I don't know if I want to add yellow. I think I might want to leave it. It's really dark. Some really awesome figuring. And I didn't apply too much dye. Not getting any of the pulling. Some of that splotchiness. And the grain lines here are just beautiful. So I'll let this sit and come back a little bit. Alright, so here we are 24 hours later. And I think the red and the yellow means I probably could put a little bit more orange here. But before I put any more orange here, I'm going to rub this out with steel wool and see if I can get it to even out slightly. This fine grade steel wool. And actually, I could just tell by rubbing this out, it evens out the color really quick. Steel wool is the great equalizer. That orange really evened out, and you can see pulling out just enough to make this look sweet. That looks pretty good. Probably what I could have done is sand it out with 320, pull a little bit more of the brown out, and then layer the orange over, and I probably would have gotten it to pop a little bit more in terms of just having it more orangey. I don't think I need to do anything with this. I'm rubbing pretty hard to get this cleaned up. Let's vacuum this up. So I went outside and I'm looking at this, and in the natural light, way too brown. So I'm going to come back with some more orange and hit this up again. So I got a clean rag, some orange. See if I can get this to pop a little bit. I think that's what I want. It looked a little bit too dull. So coming back with the orange here should help. Picking up all kinds of colors. Definitely more what I'm looking for. Definitely darker. Hopefully it doesn't pull too much. We'll rub this in, let it see, come back again and hit it with the steel wool. You can see how much brown is coming out of this rag. I think this is why I usually end up adding a little bit of red, because it helps darken it up. Much darker, much better. Got my dark rag. This is my original orange rag. We'll just feather this again. We'll let this sit a couple more hours, and it doesn't look like it's pulling too much. We may be good. I could see some of the dye still sitting on the top here. Once we let this dry, hit it with the steel wool. I may just do a real quick brush with the steel wool, but this has that color contrast that I was hoping to get with the much darker grain lines and then the really lighter quilt pattern. So we'll see. Getting real close. Alright, so this is looking perfect. It's exactly what I was looking for. Left it for about 3 hours. We're going to take the fine grade steel wool here and just rub a little bit out. Not too much. Just any fuzzies or color that didn't absorb. Didn't get any splotchiness, which is really, really key in doing this. I think if I added a yellow, I could get these lines to pop. And I could also not get them to pop, so I'm not going to do anything. This steel wool is going to help lighten up those lines a little bit to begin with. I've still got the orange and the deep brown. So I'd say this is definitely more tiger's eye than some of the ones I've done in the past. That's it. Not that much came out. We'll vacuum this up. You can see the awesome coloring in this as I play with it. Take this outside. We'll put 2 coats of sanding sealer like you see on here. Alright, so we put 3 coats of this sanding sealer on here. And after the first coat, I was like, this is awesome and it's beautiful. And then that 3rd coat, and I brought it back downstairs, and for some reason, it turned red. And I don't know why that is. It was orange on the first coat, and it turned red. I'm thinking that maybe some of the color got pulled up with the sanding sealer, and it blended. Because you can see a little bit right there. It's a little splotchy. Here, it's not as bad. So I would consider this a beautiful mistake. I still wanted it orange. I want that look. I know sometimes they'll take a brown, put it in as deep as they can, sand it back, seal it, and then tint, and then put the orange over it. Kind of like I did with the Joe Perry guitar years ago. I didn't want to do that with this. I thought I could get those colors to look right. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this now. Wanted to show you guys, sometimes these don't turn out exactly how you want. So I may sand it back, I may leave it, I don't know. I know once I rub this out a little bit more steel wool, it'll pop in another coat of 2K will really get it to look deep. But this still looks pretty nice. So we'll see. You'll see in one of my other videos what I decide to do. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. Interesting process. Didn't think this was going to happen, but thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.